I'm Bob Behringer, the CEO of the electronic on-ramp EOR. I started EOR when I was 13 years old. I've had the same 8 and 100 number now for like 31 years. So we started off in Texas. I joined the military a little bit later on after spending some time in the military intelligence community working with the special operations folks. Came back to DC and kind of the company really grew up, transformed a lot. So we started EOR in DC with one of the guys that was with Delta Force, 5th Special Forces Group, also with 10th Special Forces Group and counterintelligence agent. One of the other guys was running the White House Communications Agency. And then myself, coming from kind of a Purple Force or kind of a multidisciplinary special operations background. And so we kind of rounded out and represented all of the different services. And spent a couple years on sea duty with the Navy SEALs. I was SEAL Team 2 and 5 with 3rd Force Reconnaissance, 5th Force Reconnaissance, and building communication systems and really integrating intelligence and operations. So we took a lot of that background and then brought that into the federal government space. And so, so that's kind of the original birth of EOR and how we got to be here, providing support to all the largest agencies. We've done some really, really cool stuff. Infrastructure things for agencies that I can't mention, cryptography for other agencies that I can't mention, and then also platform development. And so for places that allow for us to do things that we can't talk about. That said, after we got through all of those kind of basic disclosures, we can say, well, hey, what are we doing now? EOR now has the largest MSA with CenturyLink for providing, it's a master services agreement for providing all of the security for their next gen MSSP. So we spent about 9 months educating, coaching, and sharing with all of the major security architects for CenturyLink how that they can converge. I'm talking about like hyper-converged data centers, and then also how do we reduce costs to our customer. I mean, how do we reduce security? So some of the stuff we've been doing, saying, hey, in the past we've had operations and security and they had separate budgets and they had separate missions, but yet they used a lot of the same tools. So it kind of reminded me of my time in the military, where we had operations that drives intelligence, unless you're in the Air Force. And then you have intelligence that drives operations. So there's kind of a couple different models out there about how that we should think about what we're doing and how we should do about the things that we're thinking. Anyway, without getting off topic, in the past, there have been a lot of people doing a lot of different things and spending a lot of money that they didn't need to. And then the right hand didn't know what the left was doing. So what EOR is doing now is we have an integrated secure network operations center. And so with these concepts, we're reducing cost and we're increasing operational integrity. So EOR here, we believe that operational integrity trumps security. So we got to have a really, really good understanding of what we're doing in operations, and all the way down to like a little packet level. We just bring in some common sense about these things. We look at when we have a little baby and we bring them into the world, we know exactly what hospital that the baby has been born at. We know exactly what doctor gave birth to the baby. We know that the baby has maybe a first name, a middle name, and a last name, sometimes even multiples of those. We know where the baby's mother and father came from, and we know where the baby's going to be going. We know the baby has a little bracelet so the baby doesn't get stolen from the hospital. There's all kinds of ways of creating attribution to the baby. Now what's interesting, we can even do DNA tests and all kinds of other stuff. When we look at our networks, we haven't been applying that same standard of care, the same standard of love, the same standard of attribution. So a lot of times on our networks, packets get lost. They get collided, they destroy, they lose their meaning, they lose their value. And that can kind of be a big thing if you're going through and you're transferring information that is business critical. So EOR started in about 1993 south of Houston. Eventually I joined the military, and after 9/11, you know, we went through and did some really cool things in the special operations community, learned a lot of advanced tactics, and we brought a lot of those concepts of operation into the commercial space. So eventually we wound up moving to DC. It's kind of where they print the money. And so from there, we started supporting operations. Like we got a chance to put in a $2 billion laser beam over at the Pentagon. Around that time, I was asked to publish a book on supercomputing or high performance computing for IBM. So the book's called Linux Clustering with CSM and GPFS. Was asked to go through and to run the communications department for the White House, and was also asked to go through and to run the emergency communication systems for the Vice President of the United States of America. Had me working out of like mountains that don't exist and other really exotic places. Some of the cool places that we went, I get to be one of the plank holders at the U.S. CERT, and so protecting all of America's assets around the world and in cyberspace, and also making sure that people were well looked after. When we looked at some of the things that we did, since then, we got to manufacture the cryptography for a really important agency in the federal government. Got to run security and infrastructure for one of the other largest agencies. We got to do platform development. And a lot of where we've gone beyond that is to support CenturyLink, and we've got an MSA with CenturyLink. We spent about 9 months developing next-gen solutions for all of their major security architects. I got a chance to work on a project called GWIZ. It was the Global Early Warning Information System. And so these are some of the places that EOR has been. Now we've got this really cool contract working with the Navy and the Marine Corps, and providing all the cybersecurity operations on what I understand to be the world's largest cybersecurity contract. So we've got thousands of people that we have the potential to hire to be able to support being kind of a hero to our heroes. And also what's cool is that these jobs are located on beaches around the world, on tropical islands, and so we get a chance to be able to really earn money and to take care of our families and to do patriotic things, while at the same time that we're being able to go diving and windsurfing and having really the time of our lives. So I love that we're able to do good for our employees. I love that we're able to do good for our country. I love that we're able to do good for our world. And that's led us into some other really exciting activities where we have been leading the way in human performance. So we're teaching people about, kind of how to be Hercules or Samson or the Incredible Hulk. And we've got world record holders that hang out with us. One of the guys that we work with, he's got 26 world records, and another guy, he's got 6, and another guy has lifted 1,000 pounds more times than anybody else on the planet. So I'm excited about the human performance things that we're doing. I'm excited about the things that have happened for me personally. And when we begin to look at what else is EOR doing, well, we're currently sending peacekeepers to the Middle East, reducing the temperature, and helping folks to save lives over there. In South Central America, EOR is building operation centers, and we're custom manufacturing ambulances and fire trucks and things that no one has been able to get over there before. We're talking like UTVs with 6 wheels that can go up into mountains and lower gurneys off the side, so that if people in the past were hiking or they got in trouble, well, we've got solutions to be able to help them. We're sending over really cool satellite fax machines and generators and all kinds of stuff to be able to make sure that people can continue to get help and to communicate effectively, even in the midst of great tribulation. So one of the things that separates EOR, that is a favorable differentiator, that sets EOR apart from the rest of the pack. Back in 2007, the folks in Bahrain asked that same question. They brought 136 different cybersecurity companies from around the world to compete. And EOR proved that we were heads and shoulders above where the other companies were at the time. That continues to be true today. EOR has gone on to develop some of the most advanced cryptographic solutions, some of the most secure communication solutions, some of the most intense operational solutions for all of our data centers and for all of our networks around the planet. EOR actually has one of our own autonomous systems. So we've got a BGP-enabled network. We've got multiple platforms. We've got high-security data centers with man traps and biometric access. So when it comes to being able to do things at the next level, EOR's here. EOR brought, at the time, 36 of the world's most elite forensic cybersecurity network attack specialists to Bahrain. And we were able to prove that the maturity levels that we had here in America were way beyond what anyone else had ever experienced. So it's part of the reason that EOR had developed these skills, because we supported critical infrastructure protection. something called NIPSI over with DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. EOR was essential and crucial in the beginning of what the U.S. CERT became, the United States Computer Emergency Response Team. So EOR has been responsible for protecting critical infrastructure for any of the agencies that are really out there right now, all the major ones, and a lot of them we can't mention on camera, but that past performance, the experience in dealing with these large enterprises that have critical information, that have critical access, all of these kinds of things, we bring this into our commercial space. We bring this into a place that benefits all of our customers at a reduced cost. So our customers don't have to pay millions of dollars to be able to learn the lessons that we've already invested in. All of this, it just flows through. In addition to that, when you look at, well, how did we get prepared to be able to go and to secure the money for Bahrain? Well, we were asked to do the same thing for the Internal Revenue Service. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people and computers and all of the millions of Americans that, file taxes. So there have been times where Americans were faced with people that were phishing and trying to steal their tax returns. And I was the guy responsible for stopping that, for protecting every single American around the world. It was a really wonderful team. I mean, if you look at where a lot of these guys have gone, they're now running places like the Fed Reserve. They're now running SEC. They're now running CrowdStrike. So I've really been in great company for a very long time. I had wonderful mentors. And so I'm really grateful to all of the gentlemen that I've mentioned, and also to all of the experiences, the placement, and the access. So when we look at where EOR has been, America has one of the most mature infrastructures on the planet. I have a background in the United States Marine Corps. I went through and had some really great experiences. Some of the lessons I learned in boot camp have carried on, and they benefit our customers today. Some of the lessons that I learned in combat school, they benefit us today. And then also some of the things that we've been doing with the military intelligence community really taught me how to think about what our customers' real needs are and what their challenges are. And so if we go back, I can share with you that in boot camp, I was meritorious promoted. In combat school, I received meritorious acknowledgement. At the intelligence schoolhouse, I received a perfect score, and it was actually above perfect. They literally had to regrade everything. So they came back and they said, well, we can't go beyond perfect, so you must have a 99.9999962 GPA. But this is after I actually finished correcting one of the tests that would have counted for 20 points. And so the gunnery sergeant that was running everything, he said, well, I didn't finish correcting his errors well enough during the time test, so that he was going to dock me 20 points for his question being wrong. Anyway, I don't mean to digress, but one of the things that was cool, I went through $1 million schoolhouse on how to think. And so what does this do for all of our customers? What does this do for EOR? Well, one of the questions that they asked me when I was in an intelligence schoolhouse was to look at a weapon system called the ZSU-23 TAC-4. And it was an anti-aircraft artillery weapon. But it also had a really interesting kind of deal. It had the ability for the barrel to decline at negative 20 degrees. And so it made me ask the question, it seems to me that this artillery piece could function kind of like our traditional artillery, and not only just for aircraft. And so I called up Staff Sergeant Borders, who was my gunnery sergeant from boot camp. I said, can you tell me a little bit about what you did with your artillery batteries? And Staff Sergeant Borders, he changed my life in these moments, because he told me about something from a tactics and procedures perspective that I can't really get into on camera. But what I'll tell you is that I began to look at operations and intelligence as an integrated activity from that moment forward. So as I began to move out and work with the Navy SEALs or the Force Reconnaissance Bubbas, I began to do things that no one else had ever done before. So like, I'd bring the Navy SEALs and the Force Recon guys, before they would go to get shot at, I'd bring them into my top secret rooms, and we would sanitize the rooms all the way down to the level of the operator that was going to go into the field. I don't mean to get too far afield here, but I'm trying to lay a foundation that specifically shares that I understand operations and intelligence in a way that has people's lives on the line. And so I can share with you that the outcomes were that anytime that I supported a Force Reconnaissance mission or a Navy SEAL mission going out into the field, every single one of my special operations guys came back home alive. A lot of that had to do with me on the phone with them whenever possible, providing support and sharing with them things like, hey, you know, there's a satellite that shows that you've got bad guys that are up in front of you and you may want to go through and to deal with them in a judicious manner. What I can share with you is that I realized at that time that we needed to bring operations and intelligence activities together, that this is the way to receive the highest level of outcome, and this is the way that we can reduce our cost, and this is the way that we can create great orders of magnitude and benefit and value to our customers. In a traditional environment in cybersecurity, we draw from a lot of those lessons that we had in the military, and some of them very basic stuff, like if you leave an operations base, then you go out, and then when you come back, there's this thing called the challenge and pass. And so you got to make sure that you're a good guy, or else you don't get back on the base. And if you're a bad guy or you're unknown, then you should be properly interviewed, and we should find out what your intentions and purposes are. So when we look at these simple concepts, there's other ones that we have that we learn in combat school, something called an overlapping field of fire. So this makes sure that if there happens to be a bad guy that wants to come and to attack the soldiers on any given military installation, that we have proper coverage and proper protections. Those same concepts that serve the military well for thousands of years also serve us well in cybersecurity. So we've been able to go through and to port those practices that have been very successful into not only a network operations center, but also a security operations center. And we realize that since we have the same tactics and techniques and procedures for both, and we have a lot of the same software for both, that if we integrated them, we could reduce the bills of our customers significantly. We could also go through and reduce the mean time to response. We could also reduce the risk. We could also create a synergy that no one's seen before. So we've seen a lot of really good things happen because of these concepts. So Eor's got some of the best relationships with our customers in the entire industry. We've been working with the same large organizations for 20 years now. And so it's pretty fantastic. When you look at some of our customers, the Internal Revenue Service, the Department of Homeland Security, every single one of the major intelligence agencies that we have here in America. And this is kind of a carry forward from my experiences inside of the military. So I brought a lot of the relationships that we've had, and they've been enduring for the last 2 decades. So I'm very, very happy about the quality of relationships. And at certain times, I was told that we were the top 10, one of the top 10 vendors for Booz Allen Hamilton. I was told that we were actually one of the top 13 vendors for Lockheed Martin. So this is the largest cybersecurity company, the largest government contractor, military industrial complex contractors in the world. So my understanding is they've got over $40 billion in gross sales. And for them to say, hey, we like you as one of our top 13 vendors that's trusted, I mean, that says a lot. There's also some really cool things that we've done for the Pentagon. We actually ran the life safety network for the Pentagon. And I bet you've never heard of anybody dying at the Pentagon, which certainly didn't happen on my watch. EOR has a really long and illustrious series of friendships and relationships that date back like 40 and 50 years. So the founders of EOR are much older than I am in most cases. And what's really cool, like for the first cyber czar of America, Howard Schmidt, EOR's co-founder introduced Howard to his wife like 45 years ago. So we've been here from the beginning of really the internet and of cybersecurity and of all of these operational issues that we've come to face over the last 4.5 decades. Look at the second cyber czar. So this was Amit Uran. And so worked with him at the National Communication System. And then also as he began to take over the U.S. CERT to begin to run a lot of the DHS operations, basically in tow right behind and supporting operations with the second cyber czar. Then we look at the third cyber czar, who became Jerry Dixon. And what's pretty cool is that Jerry went on to LinkedIn and publicly endorsed me, which is pretty cool. So if you're looking for independent third-party validation, we worked with the first cyber czar from the beginning, the second cyber czar from the beginning, the third cyber czar from even before that he became the cyber czar. And this was our time together at the IRS, the Department of Treasury, protecting all of the money and all of the Americans around the world. So this is kind of the foundation. We take a lot of the lessons learned from these 3 cyber czars and then apply them to DHS, where I helped found what the US CERT became. So EOR typically works with the Chief Information Security Officer of any organization. We also work with the CTO. So our folks have worked with the CTO from like the NSA and the CTO from Google. We've worked with the Chief Security Architect for Facebook. So EOR has worked with some really major influencers throughout our industry. Some of those include the first, second, and third cyber czar before the new CISA agency was established. EOR has worked with the CTO from the NSA, from Google, the CISOs from the Fed Reserve, from the IRS, and the executive vice presidents from many of these same agencies. We've gone through and worked with places like Facebook and PayPal, and also the other organization that PayPal was a part of, and that they kind of split up eBay. So we've supported a lot of the most major, not only government agencies, but telecommunications organizations. So EOR is one of the prime vendors that supports the AT&T infrastructure here in America, and then also for the Navy and Marine Corps. We're partnered with AT&T. We support a lot of those activities around the world. So we're really grateful for mentorship, for partnership with organizations like Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, and also CenturyLink. So when we begin to look at across the board, EOR has really strong vertical practices and what we refer to as allies. So EOR performs asymmetric work, analytic work, linguistics work, logistics work, intelligence work, enterprise support and security services work. And each of these are their kind of own verticals. So if you went ahead and took a look at EOR and you dialed in www.fpds, is the Federal Procurement Database System.gov, you'll be able to see some of the past performance that the federal government is allowed to publish about EOR's background. One of the more recent things that we've been doing is supporting something called the SOCOM-wide Mission Support Contract. That's a $450 million IDIQ that addresses every single need that our special operations community has. EOR has done some other cool work where we brought DARPA together, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, along with SOCOM, and built new UAVs so that heterogeneous platforms could talk well to each other. I'm really excited about EOR and where we're headed. We've got some really cool things that we're doing with the United States Navy and Marine Corps, providing cybersecurity operations support around the world on a lot of tropical islands, on a lot of cool places, on a lot of places that are really healthy for people, and a lot of places that provide us the opportunity to develop cybersecurity professionals in such a way that they can actually become a hero to our heroes. I'm very, very happy about the things that we're doing in this realm and arena. The other types of things that we're working on right now are with humanitarian assistance activities in South Central America, and then peacekeeping operations throughout the Middle East. Because if you were to look at what EOR is doing, it's international stability operations and humanitarian assistance work. A lot of this is technology enabled now. So as we begin to assist folks in upgrading from Hawala systems to other banking systems, our ability to ensure that the right people are doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons and the right outcomes at the lowest cost and the highest returns, well, that's what EOR is all about. So EOR has been doing some really fantastic things in the area of human performance. For me personally, every time that I went out to teach the Green Berets something, like it boomeranged and it helped to heal me in a way that I wasn't previously aware of. So I've had really cool experiences. Like when I went to BioCybernaut and the folks who basically do 40 years of Zen. I was able to triple the amplitude of electricity in my brain. That's pretty wild. I was able to increase the level of semi-coherence between the left and right hemispheres in my brain. I was able to see a greater amount of my heart expressed through my body and who I am. And what does that really mean from a human performance perspective? Well, the more that we treat our mitochondria great, then the more that our body will respond in a great way. So we've been measuring things like, hey, how long are our telomeres? And essentially reversing age. So I built EOR in such a way that it used to take me a lot of effort. So my personal journey is that it's working like 120 hours a week to be able to make about $4.5 million a year for the company. And that was pretty rough on me. So I'm pretty sure that I got to be like 60 or 70 years old. And as I started biohacking, sharing these cool concepts with our company and with our employees and with the different people that we interact with for our customers. Then I went from this kind of really kind of broken way all the way back to my calendar age of 43. I regrew my own telomeres to where my new reports are showing that I'm the same age as a 31-year-old. That was 8 months ago. And I just came back from a biohacking conference in California where they went through and they measured my human performance again. And they said, hey, you're 29 years old now. So I'm seeing some pretty, honestly, kind of unbelievable things that are happening. What's also kind of unbelievable is that like 6 months ago I was bald. Now I've got hair again. That's pretty wild. So I'm finding that there's some principles that we can share with our world. Like we can increase the nutrients that we're having, and we can decrease the consumption cost for those nutrients, and all of us can become happier, healthier, and stronger. So these are a few of the things that we're doing, but this isn't just my own personal story. We're hanging out with guys who've broken more than 26 world records individually, guys who hold 6 world records, and guys who've moved more than 1,000 pounds more than anybody else on the planet. So we've kind of got our own motley crew, if you will, of world record holders and of people who do things that no one's ever done before. And this is true for our work with like the National Security Agency and with some of the other agencies that we can't mention here on camera, but we're doing things that are pace setting, that are trend setting, and that are definitely, as IBM calls it, over the horizon. I wound up understanding that I could do good for me as a human being and also do good for our customers, and that began to shift something within me. So I went from testosterone levels that were almost non-existent back to fully functioning testosterone levels. And I'm losing weight because of it with basically an effortless ability. And I'm also increasing muscle mass effortlessly. I'm becoming more cognizant and aware. And also I think that the real opportunity for us is, can we allow for our heart to shine with greater empathy? So the goal here for me has been, how do we increase our strength and then also increase our control of our strength? So can we become more meek in every moment of every day? And so this has kind of been part of my goal, and it's expressed through lengthened telomeres, through energy levels, through sleep. So get this, like 4 years ago, I was at a place that I was getting 13 minutes of deep sleep every night. And basically, I was having the same kind of sleep patterns that a 60 or 70-year-old man would have. And I did some brain rewiring, did some body rewiring, did some changes in the way that I think about things. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm at a place where I get 2 or 2.5 hours of deep sleep every night. So I'm able to share from personal experience how we can go from, you know, I think the saying that had the movie, right, which was kind of fat, sick, and nearly dead. Well, that was my story. It didn't need to be. But I went from like the best human performance that you could have in the special operations community to trading all of my life force for money and for contracts. And then realizing that as I was fat, sick, and nearly dead, and I still didn't care about my own health. But what's really cool, one of my brothers was a Green Beret. He said, hey, Bob, we'd like you to come. You saved our lives 20 years ago. We'd like you to come and save our lives now. And I'm like, sure, anything for you. I would do that for free. And so that began part of my journey into biohacking. Also, the smart guys at the NSA at the same exact time said, hey, Bob, you should look at coming and going from computer hacking to biohacking. So the physiology and the systems that make up who we are as human beings, or individuated units of consciousness in kind of our larger consciousness system. I've gone on to do some pretty amazing journeys with pretty amazing people, and this is what I'd like to be able to share with every single new employee and every single new customer. Just, hey, there is a way to be happier, healthier, and stronger. There's a way to be able to achieve our job, our mission, and to be able to build a better planet together. So it all starts here within us, and then it moves out. EOR's here to build a better world, supporting each of our customers and each of our employees with a great level of synergy, investment, empathy, compassion, and as we move forward, a greater level of awareness, enlightenment, education, and support. It's one of the first times that I published some information about our Integrated Secure Network Operations Center. I actually got called out by a guy that was running the security for the United States Senate. And he said, I've never heard of these terms of art inside of, and this is what caught my attention. He used the word terms of art. So I'm thinking I'm probably dealing with somebody who's pretty intelligent. He doesn't even identify that he's the guy running security for the Senate for the United States of America. But I'm paying attention now. He's got my attention, and I'm thinking rather than just being like a troll or somebody that was being a naysayer, that this was somebody that I should engage in intelligent conversation, because he identified himself as a person understanding terms of art for the industry. And what was interesting is when I went down to the US Senate to be able to talk with them about these exact concepts, I was able to go through and to show that not only were these new terms of art being applied to the cybersecurity arena, but they were actually terms of art that had been in existence for a long time. These are coming out of different, kind of from a polymath perspective, different environments. So when folks hire EOR, when they hire our team, we're really bringing in experts from all over the planet, like the best guys in quantum computer programming, or the best guys in virtualization, or the best guys in convergence, or the best guys in network design. And what's really cool at EOR is that we really care about even the smallest detail. When we look at single packet authentication, when we look at being able to ensure that we know from an attribution perspective where every single packet is going and what it's doing and if it's supposed to be able to be there. Now, what confounds some of our competitors is when you get into unstructured data, they kind of freak out. Their minds kind of melt. And it's not true for everyone, but I'm just going to simply ask, when's the last time that you heard of anyone that had solved an unstructured data issue? I'll tell you, EOR's been doing this for nearly 20 years. In the past, we only worked with the folks who could afford our services. And as we've grown, we've optimized our services, we've reduced our costs, we've improved our scalability, and we found a way to be able to care about every single packet on every single one of our customers' networks. And we're talking about not just from a single perspective, but all the way from the packet, all the way up to an autonomous system, up to a BGP-enabled network that's running the entire internet. Talking about from a local access provider to a transport provider to a backbone provider. So there's a lot of different ways that we look at telecommunications and telecommunications security. See, a lot of people these days are looking at internet communications, but they're forgetting that on the internet, there's a telecommunications infrastructure. And what's the telecommunications infrastructure run on? Something like SS3 or SS5 or SS7, which is the old signaling and switching networks. Well, EOR has experts in understanding how to run these telephony systems. And that puts EOR in a completely different place. Now, for me personally, my background, and I mean, I paid dearly for this. I was working 3 13-hour shifts for the Department of Homeland Security and the National Communications System, and then the US CERT. So that's 13 hours a day plus overtime plus a 2-hour drive. We're talking like 18 hours a day. I did this for like 6 or 7 years. And then I'd have 1 day off, and then I'd spend another 3 days working for the Internal Revenue Service. So what's wild is that at the top side from the US CERT's perspective, if, like there were bad guys, and this actually happened, there was a bad guy group, and they went through and they hijacked the original ISP in New York called Panix. And their intent was to steal all the data from every single one of the ISP users. And we're talking about a big legacy and a big population in America. And the bad guys stole this and they moved it down to Australia. And I was responsible for bringing this back home to America and protecting and remediating all of these things. So we're able to restore the ISP back to the rightful owners. And that was pretty impressive. Now when we go down, so that's my first 3 days, right? And then what's my next 3 days? Well, some bad guys tried to steal US taxpayer information. And we were using signal level intelligence, signal level and wireline and packet level analysis. So we're talking about EOR has background and me personally experience in solving the world's hardest problems. Like what do you do when somebody steals an ISP? It's not something that happens every day. So EOR has been on the leading edge of protecting people from events that nobody ever thought was possible before. And then merging those concepts from that deep packet level, that deep signal level, that deep telecommunications level, and then everything in between. And so this is why when the guys that were building the new MSSP practice for CenturyTel, which I mean has Savvis and Quest, they did a lot of merger and acquisition. Talking about like the 3rd largest telecommunications provider in America, those experts issued a master service agreement to EOR and our experts to go and teach them what we had learned. at like the NSA and the CIA and DIA and every single other place where people are doing cool things, then how do we do this in an unclassified way that protects people, that protects property, that protects people's ability to be prosperous in all that they do? So this is a lot of what EOR is bringing together. And in our Secure Network Operations Center, we do it at a lower cost. So now we don't need to have a separate NOC and a separate SOC. We reduce costs, we bring things together. We reduce mean time to detection, we reduce mean time to prevention, we increase the operational efficiency when we look at forensic investigations and recovery and mitigation. And when people design networks our way, they don't get breaches in the first place. And what's really cool is even if there was a way that someone could find out how to hack into our environment, they'd never get out alive. Not with the data, and also not with anything that would ever compromise or harm our customers. And that's different than any other network that's ever been built. When you start looking at some of the people that work with EOR, we've got the guys who invented the cryptography from the CIA. Those are our friends. We've got the other guys who went through and built the crypto from the NSA. We've got the guys who built the supercomputer systems from all of these other agencies that don't really exist. And so what are we doing now? We're finding a way of being able to bring all of the cool tools and the cool toys, and we're bringing them down at a commercially available price in a sanitized and unclassified way. And how do we do that? Well, we really stop focusing on security or obscurity, and we start focusing on operational integrity, right? So this is if we design and we build a system, and we say this system should send 100 packets from me to you, or 100 kilobytes more specifically. Well, EOR divides that transaction by the maximum transmission unit, the MTU, on the network. We account for collision retrans. We go out of band on all this stuff. And we make sure that, well, you know, here's the deal, right? Cockroaches, they like to hide in the dark. So do bad guys. What we do here at EOR is that we shine a light on all the operational intent that we could ever have in both a structured and unstructured way. And when we finish doing this, then all of a sudden there is no possible way that operations ever are compromised, that the data ever goes anywhere beyond what it was supposed to, and that everything we ever wanted to happen from our best dreams, they always come true for us, for our customers, and for the people they serve. We got the guys over at Georgia Tech, and I really respect Georgia Tech a lot. They've been doing some pretty cool stuff and being able to look at how DNS, domain name service, how it works. I'm not going to get into the secret sauce, but what's really neat is that when they recently had a PhD graduate and he finished doing all the cool stuff that they could possibly do, then they said, if you really want to become a packet ninja, go talk to the guy who owns EOR. So he's doing all that high-speed, low-drag stuff that nobody talks about and that people only whisper about if they dare. Now, what's really cool about what we're doing now is that we're taking all that high-speed, low-drag content and we're bringing it down to every single person that would ever desire to have a meaningful life and a meaningful career within the IT infrastructure and security arena. Now, what's different about what we're doing is that rather than us going out to hunt down people and saying, hey, you're amazing, and we still do that, we like hanging out with amazing people, but now we've developed a program that can cater to inner city youth through our Hub Zone program. We licensed a $100 million university. And what's really cool about the new educational platform that EOR is offering is we're teaching people how to build Internet of Things, the IoT devices. So you talk about Raspberry Pi, you talk about Arduino, you talk about hardware of the future, robotics. Well, EOR is teaching this. And we're teaching something called laser, land, air, sea robotics with advanced sensors. Very, very special things. This puts UAVs and autonomous driving vehicles way in the past. After we teach our folks, every single one of these young people, they can start like at a 10th grade level education. We can even help people get GEDs to be able to accelerate their learning curve. And what's cool is that we teach them how to build the hardware. And then alongside of this, we teach folks how to program in languages that are very meaningful, that are versatile, that are next gen. Stuff that's foundational like Perl, and then Ruby and Python. These kinds of languages allow for us to be able to teach people to build, program, and allow for robots to work in real time. But that's not enough for today's kind of complex and diverse cyber environments. Now we need to be able to secure the systems. And we teach folks how to do that. And then the supply chain, we might think, well, there's network threats that are out there or bad actors. And what should these bad actors or nation states, what should they want to do? Well, if they want the data, they're breaking into these systems. Well, we already built it, we programmed it, we secured it. Well, we should also know how to be able to break into our own hardware. Only then do we really truly have an understanding. And this is what Sun Tzu said. He says, if you want to be successful in your whole life, you got to know yourself, you got to know your environment, and you got to know your adversary. So we're teaching young people how to be able to do this. We're taking wisdom from thousands of years ago and applying it to our modern day environment so we get to build superhuman performers. X-Men, Avengers. What's the next version? What's the next version of being superhuman? Well, EOR is defining that, and we're welcoming all of our youth and all of our other practitioners into this place so that we go way beyond being packet ninjas, way beyond being physical ninjas. And oh yeah, by the way, one of our closest friends and advisors happens to be like the 5th American ninja that used to practice and teach weapons and all kinds of cool stuff in Tokyo. So now we bring this back. What are we doing now? Well, EOR says that you, as a young person, you as a potential employee have the right to be able to negotiate your own salary. You have the right to be able to determine your own worth. And you have the right to be able to what? To be able to learn and to grow in a way that you can master the entire supply chain. So we're going to teach you how to build the hardware. And if you already do it, great. I'm going to teach you how to program it. And if you already do it, great. We'll teach you how to do it better. We'll teach you how to configure it and secure it and then break into it. And then after that, we're going to teach you how to forensically evaluate what just happened. And then we're going to teach you how to secure it again. So EOR is really masterful at understanding the complete life cycle of systems development, of systems implementation, and of the human beings that are doing the work that's so critical for all of us here in America and abroad. Part of what we're doing that's unique and different is that we're empowering every single person that chooses to come and join the EOR team on many of our heroic missions. So we have peacekeeping missions, we have stability operation missions, we have humanitarian missions, we have ecotourism missions. We send people to go work on tropical islands and cool places around the world. Most of the places that we have excellent diving, and then also kite surfing, and then a lot of other fun activities. So if you want a cultural experience, if you want to change the world, if you want to support any type of patriotic or loving or kind act on our planet, well, EOR is the place to be. When you come to work with EOR, you get to negotiate your own salary. You get to go through and to add to cart any type of mentoring, coaching, experience that you might desire in a location that you choose, with the rate that you choose, with the availability that you choose. And you could come and say, I choose to work with EOR for 3 months or for a year or for life. Most of EOR's contracts actually support contracts with a minimum length of 5 years. Most of EOR's contracts have been going for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So EOR has the right contracts, the right customers that are very stable. And who's the majority of our customers? Well, they're federal government agencies, or they're non-governmental organizations, or they're telecommunications and infrastructure customers. So EOR's customers aren't going away, and their needs, they're not going away either. What are they doing? Our customers have ever-growing, ever-expanding needs and ever-expanding budgets. This means that there's security, there's context, there's growth opportunities, there's leadership opportunities, there's lots of adventure. And so in each of these areas, EOR is laying a foundation for everyone to live their dreams. Now, when you come join EOR, you could say, hey, I'd like to have my dream job. And then you might think, well, I don't know how to have my dream job because it's still a dream. And then you'd say, hey, well, EOR's got some smart people with big hearts and they're here to be able to coach me through that process. And to that end, EOR just licensed a $100 million university. It's pretty cool. It takes where EC Council used to be at, it takes it to the next level. It takes certified ethical hacker and it takes it to extreme hacking. What else are we doing? Well, we like all of these guys. We have advanced network classes and advanced compliance officer classes and advanced forensic classes and advanced programming classes. So almost in any single specific area of your life, EOR can teach you how to do that better. On the human performance side, we actually teach something called exercise-induced altered states. so that we can live our life and be powerful in our physical form. We can be powerful in our mental form. We can be powerful in our spiritual form. And essentially, we get to be happier, healthier, and stronger in all that we do. So wouldn't it be cool if the computer programmer that we see on Big Bang Theory also happened to look like Superman? Well, we can do that here. And some of the biohacks that we have allow for us to take a workout that used to take 30 hours and bring that down to 15 minutes. Used to take 40 years to be able to develop mental and cognitive efficiencies and semi-coherence between our two hemispheres in our brain. Now Eor found a way to be able to do that in less than a week. So there's some really cool biohacks that we share with the people and the members of our tribe. We have an entire ecosystem so that anyone's dreams go from in the ether to anchored here in the reality that they choose to live in. So at EOR, we invite you to visit www.matchyourmission.com, where you can work the job you love and live the life you dream.